Alright, so we're here on the channel talking about the 2022 season. Now obviously 2021 was quite hectic of a season, guys. Let me just mute myself on the old PC there. Everyone welcome in to this stream. So, as I said before, 2021 was a hectic season. There was a lot of controversy with the FIA and just an incredible battle that we saw between two drivers of Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen in these very cars right here. But a new season is upon us, and how will each individual team perform? Obviously we have a lot of the new regulations coming in with the new cars, so every team is going to have to adjust. But to be honest, I think it's going to be another season to watch and definitely not one to miss out on. So the first team to discuss, we're going to go all the way back. We're going to start from the bottom, and we're going to be starting with Williams Racing F1 team. Now, Williams actually had a good 2021 season in my opinion. They've started to get a lot of more pace in their car, but they've just lost their best driver, who is George Russell, who's going to Mercedes. But then again, I think with this new car, Williams are going to definitely improve. They're going to aim for a bit more points than in the races. They'll still be a bit of a backmarker, but they're going to try and they're going to definitely aim to get into that midfield pack, especially with the driver lineup that they have in Alexander Albon and Nicholas Latifi. I think those two are going to be a great pairing. I'm just really hoping, as an F1 fan, to see Williams get back in a fighting position where they used to be so many years ago would just be, I think, one of the best things to see for the F1 fans across the world. You know, because Williams has such a big name in F1 history, and for them to be on a build-up and getting themselves back into the sport now is hopefully going to be really good to see. But so, for me, in my opinion, I'm not going to be putting Williams last in this constructors. But I will do a run through of where I think the teams will finish towards the end of going through all the teams. But I think Williams, with their 2022 car, I think they're going to be a team to definitely keep an eye on, and because anything can happen with these new cars. It's a new era for F1, so some teams will definitely take advantage of that. Next up, we got Haas F1 team. Now Haas in the 2021 season were serious backmarkers. They were obviously heavily focused on the 2022 season. They said that in pre-season testing before the 2021 season, that even, you know, Gunther Steiner mentioned that the team is more fully focused on 2022 instead of 2021. So I'm expecting them to have a car that can push for a bit more than P19 and P20, because they've had so long to work on it. They've been focusing on it for an entire season. I think we're going to be hopefully in shock to see what Haas F1 can do. Their driver pairing, obviously Mick Schumacher, he has loads of potential in the sport. He's been doing really well for them. Mazepin has also been trying to give his best, but I think he's really getting used to this sport. He gets a lot of hate for his terrible driving, but I think these two pairings can hopefully do well for Haas this year. But I think on as much as of the work that they're going to put into their car, I still think they're going to be finishing bottom of the constructors. That's just my opinion. I think anyone can argue with me about that. But then again, you know, there's always a team that has to finish last, and for this season I think it's going to be either Haas or this next team, Alfa Romeo Racing. Now, the Alfa Romeo have a whole new driver lineup this season. They have Valtteri Bottas and Guan Yu Zhao, the first Chinese driver in Formula 1. So it's a huge achievement for him, but just how much of a car is Alfa Romeo going to have? Is it going to be quick? Is it going to be still very slow? Is it going to be able to compete in that midfield pack? And the answer I have to that, in my opinion, is no. I don't think Alfa Romeo have the car or just even the capability to fight in the midfield. You know, they have a whole new driver lineup. And obviously Giovinazzi has left. We don't know what sport he'll be going to, and Raikkonen retires after an incredible career. But I think the driver pairing that Alfa Romeo have might be something that can salvage them. You know, Valtteri Bottas is going to be the experienced driver. He's going to be there to teach Guan Yu Zhou everything. You know, Guan Yu Zhou, of course, he's very experienced from F2, but I think Bottas will help him get to grips with an F1 car. So I think that pairing is going to be very good for Alfa Romeo come this season, but I think they're going to be down there with Haas in the constructors, unfortunately, just because their 2021 season, we don't know what they were focusing on, and they didn't really perform very well either. Obviously Giovinazzi reached Q3 once or twice, Raikkonen was in Q2 a lot of the time, but mostly the pairing was out in Q1 a lot of the races as well. So I feel like Alfa Romeo will have a lot of work to do as well this season, and obviously with a new car anything can happen, but it's very unlikely that they'll prosper over some of the other teams that we're going to go through in this live stream. Next up, this is a team that I feel are really doing well in the competition. I think they're going to have another good 2022 season, and that's AlphaTauri. Obviously they're going to be, with Honda leaving the sport, it's going to be a big question on the Red Bull engine. Will the AlphaTauris will they benefit from it, or will the AlphaTauris unfortunately not benefit from it and have problems? And I don't want to see AlphaTauri having problems, because I do support them, especially, you know, Pierre Gasly, their driver that's doing really well for them. Of course, Yuki Tsunoda, their second driver, his first season in AlphaTauri wasn't very good for him, but in Abu Dhabi, my God, did he put off a brilliant performance for himself with Gasly as well. So I think if them two can work really well this season as a pair, like they've done this season, AlphaTauri are going to be a force to reckon with, and they're going to be up there in terms of the constructors, definitely fighting that midfield pack, which we're going to love to see as F1 fans. But it all comes down to that Red Bull engine and how good it's going to be, because then again it also has to suit the Red Bull, and if it doesn't suit the Red Bull, then there's going to be a problem. And you know, so Red Bull really have to get this engine at a competitive level in comparison to the Ferrari and the Mercedes and the McLaren. Those are the four teams, the four teams that Red Bull and AlphaTauri need to be fighting with. Now, Ferrari are, I mean, you can't like talk about F1 without mentioning Ferrari. They've been in the sport for decades, since it started, and they had a bad year in 2020. 2020 was one of their worst seasons ever. I believe they finished, I'm assuming this is based off constructors finished in 2020, so P1, P2, P3, P4, P5. They finished P6. That's Ferrari's worst ever constructors finish. And you know, I think it shocked the F1 world when they saw where Ferrari finished, because Ferrari, they have such a good history with Enzo Ferrari. You know, they have a huge history with Italian motorsport racing, especially Monza and Mugello and Imola. They're all connected with Ferrari, and Ferrari is one of the most biggest teams in Formula 1. And last season in 2021, we saw them bounce back, which was really good to see. They had a slow start off against McLaren, who were on the charge for the P3 in the constructors, but Ferrari bounced back in the second half and won that battle with McLaren to finish P3. So because of that, I see Ferrari having a very good car this season, and especially with their pair of Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc, I think Ferrari are going to be definitely challenging for that constructors title this season, whether it's them fighting Red Bull and Mercedes consistently each race. Pardon me. You know, I think it's going to be so interesting to see Ferrari fighting, because I think they're going to have a great car this season, hopefully. But if they get it wrong, it's going to be a really big letdown for them, because they had such a good recovery in 2021. It would be very upsetting to see them have another downfall in the 2022 season. But it's going to happen to some teams because it's a new car. It's a new era of Formula 1. It's the future of Formula 1, what we're talking about now. We've moved out of the hybrid era. We've moved on to an extended and a possibly greater version of the hybrid era. You know, we're no longer in the era of V8s or V10s. We're just in a new era for Formula 1. And hopefully Ferrari can get themselves back into winning championships, races and constructors' titles. They're a team that has a history of doing that. That's where they need to be. And I feel in the 2022 season, this is what they're going to be. They're going to be challenging Mercedes and Red Bull for that title. Now, the next team is Alpine, or formerly known as Renault. Alpine had their first season in 2021, and don't get me wrong, they had their highs and lows. They had Ocon with the superb victory in Hungary. They had Fernando Alonso with his amazing P3 in Qatar, in Losail, if you will. So yes, they have had good cars at good times on track. But other than that, in my opinion, they're one step ahead of Aston Martin in the midfield battle. It's really McLaren and Ferrari and AlphaTauri that dominate that midfield, whereas the lower midfield is Aston Martin and Alpine that and sometimes Williams can squeeze into it. But Alpine, you know, it's going to be difficult to see how they perform this season, you know, because it's going to be a new car. I feel Aston Martin are going to benefit huge with these new regulations, so I just feel Alpine aren't going to be as strong as they were as last season. But then again, we won't know until winter testing, or even that pre-season testing in Catalonia. We won't know. But they still have a good pairing of Esteban Ocon and Fernando Alonso, two very good drivers. Alonso being a two-time champion, Ocon being a race winner. You know, I think they're going to get off to hopefully a good start this season, and we just have to see how they go. Next up then is Aston Martin Cognizant Formula 1 team, formerly known as obviously BWT Racing Point. Now, Aston Martin have always they really had not the best of seasons. To be honest, Lance Stroll, not a lot of consistency from him really. He was kind of a downfall this season. Sebastian Vettel finished on the podium in Hungary, got second in Baku. He's done really well with the Aston Martin for the car that he's been given. But hopefully with this season, Aston Martin will bounce back, have a better car, and be able to challenge the top teams, because I feel they definitely can. You know, we saw Racing Point being able to do that back in 2020. They had a really good, quick car. So hopefully Aston Martin can follow that same legacy that you know they've left behind with Racing Point and Force India. So, and they have a good pairing. Just Lance Stroll, he needs to get himself together. He needs to keep working hard, and the same with Sebastian Vettel. They can do really well for the team, so I want to see them do well. And now we get to the top three teams, the ones that really do have a bit of pressure on them. And the first team is McLaren. Now, McLaren had a good start to the 2021 season. We all know how well they did with Norris, having a great opener in the season, along with Daniel Ricciardo. Both drivers doing very, very well, putting themselves into P3 for the constructors' fight. Then obviously their win in Monza, their 1-2, the only team to score a 1-2 this season, which is pretty kind of hard to believe when you think about it. but they did it in Italy, and that's because obviously Verstappen and Hamilton took each other out. But besides that, Norris, in terms of the drivers, Norris was the better driver in my opinion for McLaren this season because he's been there longer than Ricciardo. Ricciardo's only been there one season, and this season he was settling in to the team. So 2022, hopefully McLaren, both drivers are going to be ready for it more than ever. They're going to be so hungry, hopefully, and that their car will be quick. You know, they're McLaren Mercedes now, so they have a Mercedes engine in the back of their car. Hopefully they can do well. I want to see them challenging for race wins and podiums, and I think they can do that. But Ricciardo, he has to up his game in qualifying. You know, he didn't make it to Q3 a lot last season, and sometimes he'd barely scrape into Q3. But he needs to help Norris a lot out as well. But other than that, the pairing is very good, and I'm hoping to see how well. I'm excited to see how well they perform this season on track. Next up is Red Bull Racing. No longer Red Bull Racing Honda after Honda has left the sport. Obviously, we said that with AlphaTauri. Now, obviously, the big question with Red Bull is obviously they have Max Verstappen, the current world champion, after controversy in Abu Dhabi, but we won't go into that. That's one race. We move on from that. It's a new season. But Red Bull are obviously going to have their own engine. They're going to be their own supplier. They're going to join the likes of Mercedes, Ferrari, and Alpine. They're going to join the team that the teams that have their own engines, and that is what Red Bull want to do. They haven't really got a choice because they don't want to sign with anyone else. They wish they could be with Honda forever, but Honda just want to leave the sport. They've made their decision. So Red Bull having their own engine leaves a lot of thought to us as F1 fans. You know, is their engine going to be help making them competitive against the Mercedes, or is it going to drop them down the field because of how poor it might be? Well, hopefully it's the first one. Hopefully their engine that they make is going to be competitive, that it can challenge the Mercedes, challenge the Ferraris. Because trust me, the Ferraris are on for a good season. I know they are. I'm hoping they are. Ferraris are going to be on for a good season, so Ferraris are going to be challenging Red Bulls. Same with the McLaren. They're going to be challenging the McLaren. They're definitely going to be challenging the Mercedes, because the Mercedes, I'd be really shocked if they went wrong with their car this year. But anything can happen, as I said. But it's very unlikely that Mercedes will have a bad car this season. So Red Bull have to be really thinking about it, that the Mercedes team is going to have a good car. So they need to make sure their engine is able to keep up with that Mercedes and challenge them. Obviously they have a very good pairing in Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez. You know, we saw Perez how well he did in Abu Dhabi defending Hamilton, as to his might to help Verstappen. That's teamwork. That's a good pairing. You always know it's a good driver lineup if they work together really well. And Perez and Verstappen worked well all season. So I'm glad Red Bull have kept him on this season, because he does well for Verstappen. He's already proved to me more than Gasly or Albon has. You know, Albon wasn't really helping Verstappen a lot in his season, but Red Bull were in a whole different place. They were with Renault at that time. And then with Gasly, well, Gasly I felt was hard done by Red Bull, but again, we're not going into that. I think with this pairing and hopefully their engine being good, Red Bull are going to be a serious team in this season with the new car. And finally, we come to the reigning Constructors' Championship champions, the 8-time Constructors' champions, Mercedes AMG Petronas F1 team. Now, Mercedes have been so consistent for the last 6 years. Obviously, when they joined the sport, they were a midfield team. They weren't the best team, but after the new regulations, after taking on Hamilton and Rosberg, they became a very serious fighting team, and now they're 8-time world champions. So to say that they have not been consistent every year in making a car would be a lie. Every year they've made an F1 car so far, over the last 8 constructors seasons, they've won because their car has just been so quick. They have very talented drivers, Lewis Hamilton being one of them. Valtteri Bottas was a great Mercedes driver as well. I felt he was hard done sometimes by Mercedes. You know, every team favourites one driver, especially the top teams. You know, Red Bull favours Verstappen, Mercedes favour Hamilton in some way. But, you know, look what Hamilton gives to that team. Hamilton gives race wins week in, week out. And finally, last season, there was a team that was able to challenge Mercedes for once. In so many years, we finally saw another team challenging Mercedes with Max Verstappen. But this season, 2022, I don't think Mercedes will have a bad car. I think they're going to have a really good competitive car, because they've just had that consistency where they've been quick, where they've just had a good car all season. Their car doesn't seem to have any failures or retirements or any mechanical failures. It doesn't seem to have that. The car just, a lot of work goes into it, but also the money they get from winning the constructors goes into their next season car as well. So obviously there's going to be budget cuts, that's been brought in now, but also even the new regulations, the new cars. Mercedes, like every other team, is going to have to adjust to this new car, and it's really who gets it right. Whoever gets it right is going to do well this season, and I'm hoping Mercedes will be one of them. But I can say that for every team, that I hope every team gets the best car that they possibly can get this season, because it will make the races so much better to know that every team has made their car to the max and given their car as much power as possible to do well in races. So now we get to the point where we're deciding where the teams are going to finish in terms of the constructors at the end of the 2022 season. If you guys missed this part of the live stream, it's going to be a video, so you can always come back and watch my opinions on the teams from the season before. So, we'll start from P10. In last place is going to be Alfa Romeo. I say this because of their consistency this season. Last season hasn't been great. The 2021 season wasn't good, and I don't think they've put the effort into their 2022 car that's going to give them the overall pace that they need. So that is why I'm going with them as 10th. In 9th, I'm going to say Haas F1. Because of how much work they've put in, because of how much focus they are on for 2022, I think they're going to have a car that will be able to get at least ahead of the Alfa Romeos. P8 then is going to be Williams, because they will score some points, but they're definitely going to score more points than Haas and Alfa Romeo. That is beyond question. So that's why I'm putting them in P8 for Williams F1 team. P7 then. P7 in my opinion will be Alpine. And I say this because of their consistency. I'm not sure how well they're going to do this season, but I know Ocon and Alonso mightn't be as consistent as they were last season. So that's why I'm going to say Alpine P7. P6 I think is going to be Aston Martin. Even though they're going to have a good car, I still think Lance Stroll is not going to be as consistent as he can be. I feel he's going to be bringing down Vettel a lot of the time, and that's why I think they're going to be finishing P6. P5 then, AlphaTauri. They have very good consistency last season. They're going to have it again this season. Maybe we'll see some surprises. They might drop up to P4, but before season testing, I'm going to put AlphaTauri P5, simply because of the skills their drivers have. Yuki Tsunoda, he slacks off sometimes, but Gasly's always there being consistent. So I feel maybe Yuki Tsunoda's inconsistency sometimes might bring it down, but then again, they're a good pairing. They do get points for each other, so I think that's why AlphaTauri are going to finish P5. P4 then. In my opinion, P4 is going to be McLaren again. McLaren and Ferrari are going to have a fight again for the Constructors' titles. So I'm going to say McLaren P4, realistically because of Daniel Ricciardo's inconsistency last season. Obviously the new car can determine everything, but their drivers have to be in it and getting, and as a team with their standard, they both have to get into Q3 every race to really be getting the best points that they possibly can and scoring consistently. That's what Ferrari was doing, McLaren wasn't. They were only doing it for half the season, and you have to do it for all the races and every weekend. So that's why I'm putting McLaren in 4th. 3rd place, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but 3rd place will be Red Bull. Not because of their drivers, it's because of their engine. The fact that they have their own engine going into the car, it's the first season they're going to be using their own engine. So that's why I think they're going to be in 3rd. Because I think that although they have a good pairing of Verstappen and I nearly said Hamilton, because of Verstappen and Perez, despite this really good pairing, they're going to get points, obviously. But will they get the most out of their car? I don't think so. Because of the engine. But let's just see. Let's see what happens. I think the car might be good. You know, it might show some really good power. It might show some really good race competitiveness. But if it doesn't, Red Bull will finish P3 in the Constructors' Championship. Now, P2 is between Ferrari and Mercedes, and P2 is going to go to Ferrari. Simply because Ferrari are getting on the back step after their recovery in 2021. They've brought themselves back into the top battle, but it's the first rounds. I cannot exaggerate how important they are for Ferrari to get into this constructors battle. They have to be consistently scoring points, at least in the couple opening rounds of the season, in order to really have a chance of fighting Red Bull and fighting McLaren for that second place in the Constructors' Championship, because they will already have a feeling that Mercedes have booked that first place. Mercedes want that first place. They're gonna go for their 9th Constructors' title, and Ferrari can stop that if they be consistent and continuously fight for podiums and top 5s in every race. So Ferrari for me will be 2nd. Then the team to win the 2022 Constructors' Championship is none other than Mercedes. I think they're going to do it. They're going to get their 9th Constructors' title because of their pairing, Hamilton and Russell. Now, a lot of Sky Sports media posts saying Hamilton may not return to the sport because he is feeling disillusioned by the FIA. Right now we can just only be positive and hope that Hamilton will return, because we know how much he loves the sport, we know how much he cares for the Mercedes team, and how much he still wants to drive. He has the drive to keep going. He wants to keep going. He does not want to stop now. But in order for him to do so, he needs to feel himself that he can trust the FIA, that they're not bending the rules in order for entertainment, that they have to be fair and equal to all. And if he's feeling that he's being hard done by them, he won't want to race in this, which will be so disappointing to us as F1 fans and the F1 world. But we have to put ourselves in his shoes. It's kind of like if you're in a rugby game or in a football game. If you feel the referee is being so against your team, or even against you in that sense, you don't want to play in that sport anymore, because you want a fair and an equal environment. And right now Hamilton feels disillusioned by the FIA after the Abu Dhabi inquiry. He feels he's been done really wrong. So, you know, we haven't heard anything from him on social media at all. But we can only hope that we see him in the Mercedes come March. And if not, if we don't see him return to the sport, then Mercedes are really going to have to try and find someone from F2 to join Mercedes alongside Russell. Now, my opinion on this partnership with Russell and Hamilton. Hamilton is no longer the youngster in the team. He is going to be the master to Russell in this case. But Russell isn't going to nice him, isn't going to be always very fair to Hamilton in the races, because Russell has worked very hard to come from Williams to join Mercedes. He's wanted this as a child. He's wanted to join Mercedes. He's wanted to race and win world championships and win Grand Prix like every other driver has. But to do that, he has to beat Hamilton, his teammate. That's what he has to do. He has to beat him. And he's going to want to do that. No matter how hard he has to fight Hamilton, he will do it. But then again, Hamilton is his teammate. They're fighting for bigger things than just the championship. The Constructors' Championship for the team back in Brackley. That's what they're fighting for as a team. So George Russell, he really has to strike a balance in between going for race victories and podiums and then the team. So it's going to be interesting to see how these two work out. I really don't want to see another Nico Rosberg and Hamilton squabble, because that will just really hurt the Mercedes team, and they'll wonder who the hell can we put with this guy. If they're all just gonna keep arguing and fighting each other, who's gonna be with Hamilton? Hopefully Russell will be the one that can strike a balance on the ground with Hamilton. But I think Mercedes aren't going to go wrong with their car this year. I think they're going to have a really good car. And I say that with confidence because they haven't failed to have a good car in the last couple of years. But guys, let's run through the order again. So, in P10, Alfa Romeo. P9, we're going to have Haas. P8 will be Williams. P7 will be Alpine. P6 will be Aston Martin. P5 is going to be AlphaTauri. P4 will be McLaren. P3 will be Red Bull. P2 is going to be Ferrari. And P1, your 2022 champions, will be Mercedes. Guys, if you did enjoy this live stream, or if you missed it by any chance, it's going to be there on the channel to watch again, and I'd all means appreciate it if you liked it and dropped a subscribe on the channel. Thank you so much for listening to this pre-season. I would love to do more videos on the F1 2022 season when it starts up. I'll be back for more F1 2022 content on my F1 journalist account on Instagram, which hopefully you can give a follow. I appreciate you stopping by the live stream, and have a safe evening.